Chapter 719, Time to end this battle. Bailey Hongzhuang just smiled lightly, but without waiting for her to say anything, Lu Huayan's voice that was filled with laughter already rang. Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Lu Jinglin with one stroke. It gave us a good head start. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba's mood was quite good. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang, Gong Shaoqing, and Dong Fangyu had won, this score was not considered bad at all. It was still uncertain who amongst Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi would win, but if Xia Jiqing won, then they had managed to advance 4 people. Compared to the last 2 times the tournament had been held, this was a much better result. Zhan Yunfeng, Bai Junyu, and Cui Haoyan were filled with a feeling of defeat. They had lost and could not pass the first round in the tournament. Mentors, I am sorry, the mood of these 3 were immensely bad. They knew they needed good results in the tournament, but they were unable to even get through the first round. They felt uncomfortable at heart. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba flashed a kindness in their eyes and patted the shoulders of the students. There will always be loss in a tournament, there is no need to think too much about it. The cultivators of Lingyin and Beihai College were strong. The reason Zhan Yunfeng and the others failed was not because of they not being strong enough, but because their opponents were simply just too powerful. Zhan Yunfeng was injured. After Fu Hongba took out the previously prepared healing medicine and gave it to Zhan Yunfeng, everyone turned their eyes to the battle between Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi. Not only the students of Kanglan College, also the students of Beihai College were worried about this battle. Both colleges had 3 people who advanced into the next round. The winner of this battle would determine who had the upper hand. The strength of this Lu Jingqi seems a bit stronger than it was at Longguang City. Gong Shaoqing judged this after seeing the current battle of Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing. Although Lu Jingqi and Xia Jiqing were at the same cultivation stage, Xia Jiqing should be slightly higher. But it was impossible to say who would win. It was impossible for Lu Jingqi to hide her strength. I hope that Jiqing can win. Zhan Yunfeng's eyes were filled with hope. She had lost in the first round of the tournament, but now she only hoped that Xia Jiqing could win. In this way, then even if she had lost in the first round, if they could have 4 places, they would hold the upper hand against the Beihai College. Xia Jiqing, you are so arrogant normally. Now you aren't so strong. Lu Jingqi sneered, her eyes were filled with ridicule. Xia Jiqing sneered and looked coldly at Xia Jiqing. Lu Jingqi, this trash talking is useless. I have not seen you having the strength to defeating me yet. Seeing that Xia Jiqing had directly guessed her thoughts, Lu Jingqi's face was ugly. She had thought of taking this opportunity to teach Xia Jiqing a lesson, but she never thought that her strength was comparable to her own. She had not succeeded so far. The power within their bodies had already been consumed by more than half. It would not work to continue this way. However, the next moment Xia Jiqing slowly said, now, it's time to end this battle. Chapter 720, Martial Arts Skill of the Middle Mysterious Rank. Listening to Xia Jiqing, Lu Jingqi was taken by surprise, before a sneer appeared on the corner of her lips. Xia Jiqing, who do you think you are? It is not that easy to defeat me. Lu Jingqi thought that Xia Jiqing was just bragging. They had not been able to determine the winner so far, but Xia Jiqing had to say that. The battle is not over yet, wasn't she just being stupid? Then they saw that Xia Jiqing's power was surging and there was a fierce light in her eyes. Fire dancing whip. When the voice of Xia Jiqing fell, under the horrified eyes of the audience, the red whip in Xia Jiqing's hand suddenly burst into a large flame, like a fire snake, flexible and fiercely attacking Lu Jingqi. This flame was not fake, it really existed. Because everyone clearly felt how the temperature in the surrounding area suddenly increased when the flame appeared. The feeling of Lu Jingqi, who was opposite Xia Jiqing, was the clearest. Sweat was oozing out from her forehead, her eyes also betraying her emotions, showing how nervous she was. She did not think that Xia Jiqing would have such a strong move. It was clearly out of the scope of yellow-ranked martial arts. It was at least mysterious. As for what level of the mysterious martial arts it was, she did not know. That was not the most important thing either. The most important thing was that she did not have such strong martial arts skills. When the strength of the two of them was equal, what mattered was martial arts skills. Since she has no martial arts skill that can compete against it, she was doomed to lose this match. The students of Lingyin College also had changed their expressions at this moment. They had been mocking the students of Kanglan College, calling them weak, but now it seemed they might even be stronger than Beihai College. This is at least the middle-ranked mysterious martial arts. Xia Jiqing is merely a mysterious heaven-ranked cultivator, but she already has a middle-ranked mysterious martial arts. I am afraid that Lu Jingqi can only lose now. In my opinion, this college is not weak. How come it could be like this in the rumors? There were a lot smarter people at the scene and they could understand what was going on. Although the last two college tournaments last 2 times had been bad for Kanglan College, the performance this time was quite outstanding. The students of Beihai College had ugly expressions. They had originally planned on finishing off the students from Kanglan College. The best would have been to ensure that none of them would make it to the second round of the tournament. However, they never expected that the situation was like this. Their performance was even better than their own. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingguo looked at each other, their faces ugly. They did not expect that the students of Kanglan College were so good. The last 2 times they were not this good. Huan Chuyo's face held a faint and satisfied smile. He was indeed satisfied with the performance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Well, I had not expected the students of Kanglan College to be crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Jian Qingqiu's face was filled with smiles. These good students, I have not even heard about them before. Huan Chuyu smiled. Their performance is also out of my expectations. Jian Qingqiu looked at Huan Chuyu and noticed that he was confident as he himself. His mood turned worse. What he wanted was to destroy them completely and prove to everyone that the decision he had made was correct. The constant stubbornness of the Kanglan College would lead them to demise. However, now the performance of the Kanglan College had already been out of his expectations. It is no wonder that their principal so easily agreed to hold the college tournament in advance. They had already prepared for it. The vice president of Beihai College, Zhang Hongxi, sat next to Lin Yinghao and his expression was the ugliest amongst all the principals and vice principals that were present. He also had complete confidence in this college tournament, but he had not expected that he would already be feeling threatened before the first round even ended. Lingyin College was first place, no one could doubt this, but if Kanglan College overtook their college that'd be the biggest shame. Vice President Song, the strength of the students of your college which have been defeated seems a bit bad, Huan Chuyu said with a casual voice. The feeling of finally being able to mock him was great and Zhang Hongxi's face turned gloomy. Huan Chuyu did not like Zhang Hongxi. He might be the vice principal of Beihai College, but now that they were a dog to the Lingyin College, all the power was in Lingyin College's hands. As a cultivator, integrity was the most important, but what had happened to Zhang Hongxi and the entire Beihai College? How many students can be led by this vice president? Zhang Hongxi looked at him with a sullen look. Lu Jinglin's performance today is poor because she was injured on the way to the Lingyin College. She has still not fully recovered. Zhang Haoxi would never let Huan Chuyu give him a tag of having weak people in his college, and immediately found a suitable excuse. Lingyin's Lin Yinghao instantly pretended to be surprised. I see, no wonder this was the result. Since the tournament was about to begin but she still managed to become injured, she sure is very careless. Huan Chuyu shook his head, the sarcasm in his words was obvious. Over the years, Beihai College has often ridiculed Kanglan College since they had the backing of Lingyin College. Every year they would make them lose students. The teachers of Beihai College would go to the countries close to Kanglan College and poach the talented geniuses. This had always made Huan Chuyu and Ren Tianxiong feel disgusted. It was obvious that the Beihai College had done a lot of small tricks throughout the years. Initially Huan Chuyu and Ren Tianxiong had no intention of acting on it, but now that things had reached this point, they had completely torn their faces with one another. He did not mind taunting them a bit. After all, you can't always suffer this kind of disgusting behavior, might at least let Zhang Hongxi understand what he was up against. Sang Hongxi had never expected that Huan Chuyu would change his attitude so much. Even so, he could say nothing in return. Can you possibly say that Lu Jinglin was injured by Bailey Hongzhuang previously? Doesn't that just mean that she was useless? Therefore Sang Hongxi can only swallow the bad breath. In fact, Lu Jinglin's show today was truly too unsatisfactory. Bang! A loud noise came crashing down as the hot temperature spread and out of the flames fell Lu Jingqi's body. It fell heavily to the ground. Seeing this unexpected scene, the audience could not help but burst into discussion. Although they knew the power of the martial art that Xia Jiqing was using was outstanding, they had never expected it to be this shocking. In a battle where Xia Jiqing and Lu Jingqi were completely equal, it was shocking that Lu Jingqi had no resistance at all. She was directly blown up. There was a big smile on Dong Fangyu's face. Is Xia Jiqing showing off the inheritance she got in the ruins? Before this, they had heard that Xia Ziwing had been taught a whip skill in the ruins. Now, looking at the power of the move, it was truly powerful. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. It should be. During the time since the ruins they had already mastered the inheritance from the ruins. From this, she can see that Xia Jiqing had full control over the martial arts. However, the amount of energy needed for this mysterious martial art was a lot, and it was difficult to display it with the cultivation base of Xia Jiqing. After all, the higher rank a martial arts was, the more power was needed in order to display it. If they were not strong enough, and they still forcefully tried using this skill, it might even harm themselves. If she guessed correctly, then this should be a mysterious middle-ranked martial arts skill. However, it should be much stronger than others of the same rank. In fact, if the martial art was higher ranked than that, then it would not be Lu Jingqi that was lying on the ground right now, but Xia Jiqing. Lu Jingqi had directly fainted, but Xia Jiqing was not much better off. Obviously this attack had exhausted all her strength. Xia Jiqing wins. When the voice of the judge fell, Xia Jiqing revealed a brilliant smile. She finally won. Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate to rush to her side and placed a pill into her mouth. She had used far too much energy in this battle and there was still the second round coming up. She needed to restore her Yuanli as soon as possible. Hongzhuang, I won. Xia Jiqing was too excited as she waved her hands. This victory was important to her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and gave a thumbs up. You are great. Because of you, we have overtaken Beihai College. Dong Fangyu and the others were also happy. After seeing Xia Jiqing, they also raised their thumbs. Jiqing, you are so powerful. Beautiful victory. The hearts of the people from the Kanglan College were happy. In the first round they had 4 people advancing. Lingyin College had 3 people who advanced, not counting Nangong Aochen who directly entered the final. Kanglan College also had 4 people, while Beihai only had 3. Soon the judges handed over the results of who had progressed to the second round to Jian Qingqiu. He then threw a glance at the final result and stood up to announce the names. In the first round, those who qualified for the second round from Lingyin College are Nangong Xiujie, Gangong Yuer, and Jin Xingyu. The ones from Beihai College who won the first round are Xiaolan Mei, Shui Haoling, and Nan Yangzi. Kanglan College's winning students are Bailey Hongzhuang, Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fangyu, and Xia Jiqing. With the announcements of the results, the cultivators from the schools cheered. No matter what, at least they managed to enter the second round and got some of the limelight. I did not expect Kanglan College to be this strong. They had 4 people who advanced to the second round. It seems that our previous thoughts were all wrong. Damn, I bet on Beihai College winning, but now they already lost in the first round. They are normally so arrogant. This is really shameful. If I knew, I'd have bet on Kanglan College. Currently they have the best odds. Someone had already started a betting pool before the start of the tournament. Because everyone knew that Lingyin College were going to be the winners, the gambles were all between Beihai and Kanglan College. From the odds everyone understood that Kanglan College had no chance to win, so most chose Beihai College, only a few would bet on Kanglan College. At this moment, seeing that Beihai College was suppressed, their hearts were depressed. Now it was impossible to change their bets, but if they could, they would have bet on Kanglan College. For this reason, Beihai College had become the subject of everyone's ire. The faces of Lu Jinglin and the others had long since turned ugly. They were filled with confidence, they did not expect that only 3 would advance to the second round. They had the fewest cultivators in the tournament now, their chances of winning were the smallest. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu's faces were ugly to the extreme. They used to be so arrogant in front of Lu Huaiyan, but now they dared not even look at him, it was simply too shameful. The show you displayed today is simply too bad. Mo Xinghai looked at the students behind him with annoyance. He had hoped that they would show off their might and stun everyone at this tournament, but they did the opposite. Lu Jinglin lowered her head. She was without a doubt the worst performer of them all. She felt that the eyes, that the mentor used to look at her with, would chop her into pieces. On the side, Lu Jingqi was still unconscious. Even though she had been given medicine, it would take some time for her to wake up again. The strength of Xia Jiqing's move was simply just too strong. Mentors, in round 2 we will do our very best. Xue Haoling said as he clenched his fist. The humiliation he was receiving right now, he would definitely give it back to the Kanglan cultivators in the next round. Lu Jinglin looked gratefully at Xue Haoling. His words had freed her from the previous predicament. Initially she did not like Xue Haoling very much. She always just let him pursue her with no intention of responding, but now she felt that he was more manly than before. Mentors, the current result does not represent the final result. Xia Jiqing has now used all her energy, she cannot perform well in the next round. Nan Yangzi slowly said. Seeing the expressions of Xue Haoling and Nan Yangzi, both Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu's faces turned much better. This was something they also knew. Although the first round of competition was over with the Kanglan College having more places than them, the second round would begin soon, there was no time to rest in the middle. With the current situation of Xia Jiqing, it was impossible to recover before the beginning of the next round, as a result she was definitely going to be eliminated. In the next round, no mistakes are allowed. Duan Yingwu's stance was tough. The strength these students displayed represented the strength of the mentors. If the students did badly, it would say that they were bad mentors. Yes. Xue Haoling and Nan Yangzi nodded their heads, they would do their best in the next battle. Compared to Xue Haoling and Nan Yangzi's loud agreements, Xiao Lanmei never said anything and was as casual as always. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu were both familiar with the character of Xiao Lanmei. He was their trump card. Even the third prince lost in his hands, so it showed that he was not weak. He would definitely walk all the way to the final. Now everyone has an hour to rest. I hope you can adjust your state as soon as possible and do your best in the next round. Jian Qingqiu announced an hour break, and everyone started resting. There is only an hour, it will be very difficult for me to recover. Xia Jiqing's eyebrows wrinkled slightly. Her previous use of the dancing fire whip had drained her body completely of yuanli. Even though she had taken some medication, it was not enough to restore her in a short time. It was like a person who was hungry and hasn't eaten for a few days. Suddenly she had food, but because of being too weak, it was impossible to restore one's strength immediately. She could never recover in 1 hour. 1 hour is indeed too little. Dongfang Yu frowned. Fortunately they had not been injured, otherwise they would have to completely miss the second round. This is simply too unreasonable. Zhang Yunfeng's face was filled with disgust. Their advantage in the first round had completely vanished like this. This rule is somewhat unreasonable, but it becomes reasonable when it is the same for everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. This kind of rule was not directed at them, but at everyone, so they could not complain about it. They could only accept it. When hearing her words, their expressions changed slightly. They were very unhappy, but they understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was reasonable. If the other two colleges did not complain but they did, everyone would have a bad impression of them. Xia Jiqing's face showed a bit of helplessness. If she had known this would be the result, she would not have used the dancing flame whip. It's just that Lu Jingqi was stronger than she had expected. She had no other option than to win this way. Xia Jiqing was depressed. From the beginning, she already knew that with her own strength, it was impossible to enter the finals. When thinking about it, she could not help but be grateful that her first opponent was Lu Jingqi. If she could not deal with Lu Jingqi before the second round, then in the second round, she would be able to help her teammates cause problems. They were there as a team, and all she wished for was to see her team go further. However, she was too weak, wasting an excellent opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Xia Jiqing's shoulder. "You already did great, don't overthink." Xia Jiqing nodded and smiled, but within her smile was some disappointment. "Jiqing, I will help you with acupuncture, maybe it can help you increase your restoration rate," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. By using acupuncture she was able to stimulate the meridians and cells in the body, allowing for the body to absorb the qi with the fastest speed. As a result, it could perhaps help Xia Jiqing recover. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing could not help but ask, "Can it really work?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly while smiling. "I said so, so naturally it will work. Don't forget who I am." Xia Jiqing's eyes shone brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was a famous medicinal doctor. "Hongzhuang, you are the hope of our college, the one we hope will enter the finals. Applying acupuncture will consume your mental energy, are you sure about this?" Zhang Yunfeng was worried. She naturally hoped that they could restore Xia Jiqing's strength, but if it affected Bailey Hongzhuang then it was not a good thing. Xia Jiqing also quickly agreed, "Yunfeng is correct. Hongzhuang, you shouldn't help me, you are the most important." It was already a shame that she had failed, but if she dragged down Bailey Hongzhuang, then she would become the sinner of the academy. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand dismissively, "Don't worry. It is just stimulating the meridians, not removing poison or healing someone. It is not complicated and won't require much energy." "Hongzhuang, are you sure?" Xia Hongzhuang asked uncertainly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and smiled. "Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you?" Xia Jiqing couldn't help but look at Zhang Yunfeng to hear her opinion, but she also nodded her head. "Since Hongzhuang says it's nothing, then let us try it." Next, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out her silver needles and her energy surged as she placed the silver needles into the acupoints of Xia Jiqing. This was the first time that Xia Jiqing was experiencing acupuncture. She had thought that it would be painful to have such long needles placed in her body, but after Bailey Hongzhuang placed the first needle, she did not feel the slightest pain. Instead, she felt a sense of soreness where the needle was placed, but it was very comfortable. Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out a white porcelain bottle and gave it to Xia Jiqing. She said, "There are some returning qi pills here. You should swallow 2 now." If they relied on Xia Jiqing's own ability to restore the strength within this 1 hour, it'd be impossible. As such, it was definitely important to use these returning qi pills. Xia Jiqing looked at the bottle of pills in her hands and her heart was bursting with emotions. Even knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was an alchemist, she couldn't help but marvel over her actions. This was completely like eating pills as if they were candy. Bailey Hongzhuang did not intend to make a big deal out of it, even though she was more wasteful than even a princess could be. In fact, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang act like this, even Nangong Yuer's eyes turned strange. A whole bottle of returning qi pills, she would naturally have no problem getting, but giving them to others, that was simply too wasteful. "Lu Jinglin, do you know what this Bailey Hongzhuang is doing?" Lu Jingqi had already fainted, so Nangong Yuer's eyes fell onto Lu Jinglin's body. In her opinion, the two sisters ought to be similar. Lu Jinglin shook her head slightly. She is just showing off and acting. This Bailey Hongzhuang likes to be the focus of everyone's attention. Hearing this, Nangong Yuer's eyes were getting filled with disgust. There was originally a bad impression of Bailey Hongzhuang, but now she was even more disgusted. Hey, Bailey Hongzhuang, you shouldn't be trying to help Xia Jiqing restore her power. Shui Haolang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gaze filled with taunt. Everyone knew that Xia Jiqing had spent all her energy on stage, and it was impossible to restore it in such a short amount of time. Although the rest time was short and they were supposed to spend the time restoring their own energy, Bailey Hongzhuang spent her time on restoring Xia Jiqing's. Was this not the same as looking for a slap in the face? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Shui Haolang and said lazily, "Well done, you guessed it correctly." Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang directly confirmed what he had been guessing, he was stunned, but then he laughed. You really like to pretend that you are generous and unselfish. You let your friends pick an inscription in Wubao Pavilion. Now you are spending your energy to save a useless teammate. If all of you cultivators from Kanglin College are like this, filled with benevolence, I think you should just give up right away. Shui Haolang was quite uncomfortable whenever he thought about Bailey Hongzhuang. It was the most important to restore one's own strength to peak condition. This move of Bailey Hongzhuang was stupid. Not only was she weakening herself, she would not be able to help Xia Jiqing. Even so, Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to pay attention to Shui Haolang. This guy was simply too selfish and was unaware of what exactly teamwork meant. Right now they were fighting for their college, but they were not relying only on their own strength. If everyone else failed in the first round, what use was it if one person advanced to the second round? Shui Haolang, I think that you and the Lu family are very suitable. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with anger and dissatisfaction. You are pursuing this Lu Jinglin, and your character is just as bad as the Lu family. You sure you are not one of their sisters? Not to mention these, anyone who dared to mock her and her friends, Xia Jiqing, would counterattack first. Lu Jinglin and her sister were too much. Now Lu Jingqi had been defeated by her, she thought that there was finally some silence, yet as soon as this happened, Shui Haolang appeared. Was this not too much? Listening to her words, Shui Haolang's face was ugly. What was the worst way to curse men? That was simply to say that they were not a man. And just now, Xia Jiqing had just said it, it was truly unbearable. Xia Jiqing, you're just a waste of a teammate. What is so good about having a sharp mouth? Shui Haolang said coldly. Xia Jiqing turned her head casually. At least I could defeat Lu Jingqi. With such a simple sentence, Xia Jiqing won the victory and slapped him in the face. A loser is a loser. At least she successfully advanced to the second round. This proved that she was indeed stronger than Lu Jingqi, who lost at her hand. Lu Jinglin was annoyed, but Lu Jingqi had already fainted. Even after taking the pills, she was still not waking up. Now that Xia Jiqing said such things about Lu Jingqi, it was really hateful. Kanglin College has lost twice in a row. This time there will be no difference, we will take it. Nangong Xiujie's eyes fell onto the body of Bailey Hongzhuang. The original admiration he held for Bailey Hongzhuang at the beginning was now completely gone. This woman is definitely not a simple character. Not just thinking about her and Mo Yunjue's relationship, thinking about Lu Jinglin's defeat. According to the information they had learned, this Bailey Hongzhuang was also a cultivator who had broken through into the innate realm. When looking at her identity, she was simply an ordinary person. But no ordinary person could break into the innate realm at such a young age. This was clearly a genius. Even if he was at the age of Bailey Hongzhuang, he would not be able to break into the innate realm, but this woman had done so. Seeing that Nangong Xiujie took the initiative to find trouble, Bailey Hongzhuang did not stop and continued to help Xia Jiqing with acupuncture. While she sneered, it seems that the behavior of the royal family is to bully others. This temperament has not changed. When the words came out, Nangong Xiujie's face was ugly. He thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have some respect for a prince, that she would not say such things here. He did not understand that Bailey Hongzhuang was different. Not only was she not scared, she even said such things in public. A slightly different kind of gaze fell onto Nangong Xiujie. They all had a certain understanding of the second prince's behavior when it came to women. When looking at how Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong Xiujie were against one another, could they have something going on between them? When thinking about how beautiful Bailey Hongzhuang was, then they understood faintly what had happened. Otherwise, with the character of Nangong Xiujie, if it wasn't because of a previous conflict, why would he come and find problems with Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Hongzhuang, you better pray that you will not meet me in the next round, otherwise you will die a very ugly death. Nangong Xiujie's words flashed with a cold light, and his words were full of threats. He had no interest in a woman who was already married. Not to mention, this Bailey Hongzhuang had provoked his anger. He had to teach her a lesson. You better pray not to meet me. The face of Bailey Hongzhuang was so cold, her eyes freezing. She had a bad impression of Nangong Xiujie. In a direct confrontation, she had never been afraid. Originally she was too lazy to pay attention to these provocations, but since they came to Lingyin College, these provocations, and all the sarcasm of these people had never stopped. It was as if they thought she was afraid of them. This time, she showed her strength. No matter how powerful her opponent was, she would go all the way. When her words fell, the practitioners present were all stunned. This attitude was completely different from the previous Bailey Hongzhuang. Had the pressure gone to her head? Nangong Xiujie only thought that it was fun, that Bailey Hongzhuang felt herself to be an important person. It was a simple thing to deal with someone weaker than themselves, a simple attack would solve it. Thinking like this, Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed a bit arrogant. However, although she had a bit of strength, should she be so full of it? Instead of taking it seriously, Nangong Xiujie was too lazy to pay attention to it. If he truly began arguing with them, then he would lose out. Shui Haoling was the perfect example of that. Bailey Hongzhuang was seated on the ground and made Xia Jiqing continue to swallow one returning qi pill after another. In the process, Xia Jiqing was stunned to find that the tiredness in her body slowly vanished and that every cell in her body was greedily absorbing the energy contained in the pills. Xia Jiqing's face was getting brighter and she admired Bailey Hongzhuang more than before. She was simply a god. After Bailey Hongzhuang took back the silver needles, Zhang Yunfeng and the others came over and asked, Jiqing, how are you feeling? I recovered. The feeling of exhaustion is completely gone. Xia Jiqing had a hard time hiding her excitement on her pretty face. Her whole body was alive and kicking, and her current actions were just proving her physical condition. Understanding the situation, Zhang Yunfeng and the others all smiled happily. They did not expect that in less than half an hour, Xia Jiqing would be able to return to such a level. It was a good thing for the next round. On the other hand, the cultivators of Beihai and Lingyin colleges were stunned at Xia Jiqing's expressions. Clearly she was not pretending. They also didn't see any signs of tiredness. After real tiredness, the body would fall into exhaustion and it would be hard to move. The situation of Xia Jiqing deviated from what they could understand. It was simply impossible to imagine that Xia Jiqing could be restored to her peak condition in such a short amount of time. How is this possible? Lu Jinglin exclaimed. All of them agreed that it was impossible for Xia Jiqing to restore her energy, but the situation in front of them made it impossible to refute. Shui Haoling's expression was very ugly. He had just finished laughing at Bailey Hongzhuang and said that what she was doing was useless, but when they looked at the current situation, wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang impossible to defeat? She was helping the college recover their fighting power. How did Bailey Hongzhuang do it? Shui Haoling looked as if he had seen a ghost. He knew that there was no way to restore energy apart from time. But now this scene had happened in front of them, they still could not understand what Bailey Hongzhuang had done. Xiao Lanmei's gaze fell onto the body of Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was extraordinary from the first moment they had met. With today's display he felt that she was getting more and more complex, and that silver needle, it seemed very similar to the method that the doctors used to use. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at each other. What an amazing method. If they could master this method, then their situation would be much better. The eyes of the cultivators within the crowd also locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang. They quite liked this girl. Even if she was a student of Kanglin College, she was able to defeat her opponent in a single blow, and successfully display her strength. The girl from Kanglin College is very good. How was she even capable of restoring the other's strength? I don't know, this is simply unheard of, but it is really amazing. I think the school is awesome. She might be a true black horse. Even so, Lingyin College was still the strongest and Bailey Hongzhuang offended the second prince. She won't have a good end. As soon as the students of Lingyin College heard the remarks of the crowd, they instantly began rebutting their words. In their hearts no one was allowed to make problems for their royal family. Bailey Hongzhuang had dared to not put the royal family in her eyes. This was the same as looking for death. Above the stage, on the high platform, Jian Qingqiu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a strange expression. This had not progressed as he expected. Old friend, what Bailey Hongzhuang used. It could not have been acupuncture. Jian Qingqiu was the principal of Lingyin College and he had seen many things. Although the acupuncture techniques had been lost for many years, this method was very sought after by the doctors, so he still remembered it. Acupuncture has long since been lost. How could it possibly appear in the hands of a little girl? Without waiting for an answer, Zhang Hongxi had already taken the lead to answer. His face was filled with disdain. What a joke! The technique of acupuncture was a method that many famous doctors had never mastered, and it was long since lost in the passing of time. Bailey Hongzhuang was just a cultivator, not even a professional doctor. How could she possibly master such a method? Hearing that, Jian Qingqiu's eyes changed a few times. Was he really just thinking too much? Although he also thought about it being ridiculous, he could not help but think so because it truly looked like the lost technique of acupuncture. In the next moment, Jian Qingqiu and Zhang Hongxi looked horrified as Huan Chuyu slowly nodded his head. Yes, this is the technique of acupuncture. The principal has a good eyesight. When the voice of Huan Chuyu fell, Jian Qingqiu and Zhang Hongxi's hearts were filled with unspeakable shock. The Kanglin College was too dazzling this time. The strength of the students was much stronger than before. In this team, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing were first-year students. When they knew about this fact, they thought that the Kanglin College was not as good as the previous years, that the talents were slowly dwindling. Even the first-grade students were sent to the tournament. But when they looked at the situation in front of them, then Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing had both advanced to the second round of the tournament. This proved that the strength of the first-grade students was way stronger than they had expected. Hey old friend, are you joking? Zhang Hongxi smiled a little embarrassed. Bailey Hongzhuang is a cultivator. How can she master the lost technique of acupuncture? Looking at the suspicion of Zhang Hongxi, Huan Chuyu was also proud in his heart. Over the years, Zhang Hongxi had been ridiculing them and their students. Now he could finally let Zhang Hongxi look like this. You don't know about this, but Bailey Hongzhuang is not only a cultivator, she is also a real doctor. If you are feeling uncomfortable, she can definitely cure you. Since you are the vice principal, then Bailey Hongzhuang would even give you a discount. Huan Chuyu smiled brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly the pride of their school. Even if he was the vice principal, he was still amazed whenever he thought about the achievements of Bailey Hongzhuang. She had so much strength at such a young age, her future was limitless. Jian Qingqiu and Zhang Hongxi looked at one another. Altoug, the smile of Huan Chuyu was ugly in their eyes. They were still too shocked to really care. The Kanglin College is really amazing, the students are skilled. Jian Qingqiu smiled a little, but his heart still held some disdain. This kind of thing seemed very prestigious, but as a principal he was clear that it was bad for the cultivator. Cultivation was a matter of time and effort. If you wanted to take time off to do other things, then you would lose time on cultivation. At the beginning the gap might not seem big, but as you grew, the gap would be bigger and bigger. It was not a good thing. Huan Chuyu could hear the words of Jiang Qingqiu and understood what he said. In fact, he had previously agreed with him. However, after seeing the progress of Beili Hongzhuang, he felt that it was truly wrong. In this world, there were some geniuses which could not be counted with common sense. After Xia Jiqing had recovered, Beili Hongzhuang and the others gathered together. The second round of the tournament was also very crucial. They had to be prepared. When I first fought against Xue Haolang, I was completely defeated by his inscription. Xiaoyu Haoyan's face was filled with unwillingness. His strength was not weaker than Xue Haolang, but the inscription H had was very powerful. Because of this disadvantage he was defeated by Xue Haolang. If it was a loss because of his strength not being strong enough, then he had nothing to say, but he lost because of outside factors, which made him unsatisfied. Inscription. Gong Shaoqing's brows furrowed slightly. It seems that Xue Haolang bought an inscription at Wubao Pavilion. His weapon was also inscribed with an inscription, but he had not used it in the first round. As Shaoqing said, it makes sense. Xue Haolang has always been rich, it is not a surprise if he bought an inscription at Wubao Pavilion. Dongfang Yu snorted slightly. What effect does Xue Haolang's inscription have? It is a flaming effect and it is very lethal. If you are accidentally burned you need to be extra careful. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing could not help but frown. There was no inscription at the Wubao Pavilion like that with flaming attributes. The dancing flame whip she had inherited in the ruins was a fire attribute, so she was quite concerned about the inscriptions of the flame attribute, just like her character which was very fiery. On the day of the Wubao Pavilion, she looked for an inscription that had fire attribute for a long time, but in the end she could only give up. She had not expected that Xue Haolang could find a fire attribute inscription at Wubao Pavilion. Maybe they added it later. Zhang Yunfeng frowned. It was not impossible. Just as Zhang Yunfeng and the others were discussing, Xue Haolang was also showing off his inscription at the practitioners at Beihai College. Ha, I did not expect the power of my inscription to be this fierce. Xue Haolang looked smug. He had only thought of using the inscription last night, and he thought the effect was quite good, but he had not expected it to be this good. When Xue Haolang's voice fell, all the eyes of the Beihai College students landed on his body. Previously they just cared about their own battles, as such they did not notice what the situation of Xue Haolang's battle was. When they heard his words, they were surprised and unaware of when he had managed to get his hands on an inscription. Xue Haolang, where did you get this inscription from? Lu Jinglin's face was showing some curiosity. They knew for a fact that it was not from Wubao Pavilion. Although they went to Wubao Pavilion the next day, the price of the inscription was simply too high. They understood that although the Wubao Pavilion sold inscriptions, it was mainly for the sake of reputation. Selling an inscription was just a bonus. If Xue Haolang had not lost his Qiankuan bag, he would have been able to afford one, but his Qiankuan bag was lost, so he was powerless. Looking at the curious expressions, Xue Haolang smiled proudly. Previously the elders of my family took it back to me after attending an auction. I did not expect it to be this easy to use. Then was it not very expensive? The price of an inscription at an auction ought to be very high. Xue Haolang waved his hand dismissively. Not expensive at all. My elder bought 3 copies and gave me one, while the other 2 were given to my brothers. Although Xue Haolang said that it was not expensive, everyone knew the truth in their hearts. Who did not know that Xue Haolang was super rich? Even if he said it was not expensive, it would be expensive for most people. Inscriptions have always been precious, and especially inscriptions like Xue Haolang's that were so good, the price would be extreme. Xue Haolang smiled as he felt the envy of Lu Jinglin and the others. Truth was, that this inscription was truly not very expensive. The elder had not cared about it when he bought it, and gave it to him casually. He had originally wanted to buy an inscription at Wubao Pavilion, but the price was simply so high he had to give up. The previous night, he was thinking about the fact that he would be participating in the tournament next, and even if the use of the inscription was nothing special, it might be able to help him a bit. However, after using it today, he found that it was not just a little help, it was a huge increase in power. Xiao Lanmei's eyes fell onto the red inscription on Xue Haolang's weapon. He noticed the effect of the inscription and had to admit that it was powerful. The inscription masters were truly great. They were able to change something so easily. If the difference in strength between the two parties was not too big, then the inscription would directly determine the final outcome. That Xue Haolang is showing off. Cui Haoyan was filled with dissatisfaction. The most annoying guy was showing off again. Xue Haolang also noticed that Cui Haoyan was glaring angrily at him, and provocatively lifted his weapon in his hand, saying with an extremely proud voice, "Idiot, you must blame yourself for not buying an inscription. If you can't afford it, then so be it." Xue Haolang felt no shame with winning by relying on inscriptions. After all, one's finances was also part of their strength. Every genius was produced under the constant use of resources. A poor man could not even afford a weapon, so how could they possibly become a cultivator? Seeing how Xue Haolang was so proud of himself, Cui Haoyan was even angrier than ever before. He had never before seen such a shameless guy. However, he had to admit that what Xue Haolang said was not unreasonable. Because he could not afford it, he was unable to defeat Xue Haolang in this situation. If he had the same financial resources and ability to purchase an inscription, then maybe things would have been different, but it was a pity that this was nothing but his imagination. "Master, why do I feel that this guy's inscription is familiar?" Little Black asked with his eyes filled with doubt. It was as if he had seen this inscription somewhere before. Suddenly Little White's eyes shone and he said surprised, "Master, isn't this the inscription you made?" The owner had been drawing the same inscription over and over again. It was drawn so many times that it was clearly remembered by them all. This was her inscription. Hearing the words, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly embarrassed. It should just be a coincidence. She had auctioned 3 inscriptions in total back when she was still at Kanglan College, but how far away was Beihai from Kanglan? The chance was simply too small for this to happen. "But master, the pattern of the 6-pointed star is exactly like the one you drew." Bashiha also noticed the inscription mark on the weapon, and kept staring at the 6-pointed star. "Even if it is a 6-pointed star, it is not certain it's the one I drew." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. The pattern of the 6-pointed star is just a structure on the inscription paper. Many inscriptions has such a structure, although the structure looks similar, it is not necessarily the same effect. "But I think it's the same." Little Black looked serious. "I even dare bet a mao that this is the inscription made by master." Seeing Little Black suddenly saying it with such conviction, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned slightly strange. After being together with Little Black for as long as she had, she understood its character very well. If it did not have confidence, it would never say such a thing. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look at Xue Haolang and say, "Xue Haolang, your inscription is so great, I wonder if you'll let me take a look." When her words fell, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. They were frowning as this was not the kind of behavior that Bailey Hongzhuang had shown so far. Xia Jiqing and the others were also puzzled. Why was Bailey Hongzhuang interested in Xue Haolang's inscription? According to their understanding, she ought to hate Xue Haolang. Xue Haolang's mind could not help but secretly think back to the time they were in the Wubao Pavilion. It had already been proved that she had a certain understanding of inscriptions. Was it possible that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to look at Xue Haolang's inscription and adapt a strategy to defeat him? In Cui Haoyan's heart, Bailey Hongzhuang would never do something without a purpose. She must have a good reason to suddenly do this. Xue Haolang, will there be a conspiracy with Bailey Hongzhuang? Lu Jinglin saw this and could not help but worry. Right now the team of Beihai College was at a disadvantage. If Bailey Hongzhuang ruined Xue Haolang's inscription, then their situation would be even worse. However, Xue Haolang shook his hand and said in a carefree manner, "No, it is impossible to do it in front of everyone." Xue Haolang looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with interest and smiled lightly. "Since you want to see it, then I will lend it to you, but don't break it." Seeing Xue Haolang so proud, the eyes of Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but gleam with laughter. This guy really liked to show off. "Don't worry, since you have been so polite, I will naturally not damage it," Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly. Xue Haolang's brows changed slightly as he walked to the front of Bailey Hongzhuang. The sword was shaking slightly before it settled in front of her, allowing her to see the six-pointed star clearly. "Can you see it now?" Xue Haolang asked with a smile, "But I don't think you can understand it." However, Bailey Hongzhuang clearly saw the pattern and she was slightly stumped. Because this inscription was clearly from her hand, how could it fall into the hands of Xue Haolang? "Xue Haolang, this inscription should not have been bought by your elders in Kanglan City," Bailey Hongzhuang slowly sounded. She had already heard from Xue Haolang that it was bought by his elders at an auction. In that case, then this inscription was in all likelihood bought in Kanglan City. It is impossible for someone to buy it and sell it in another auction house, after which it would fall into Xue Haolang's hands. The probability was simply too small. When the words came ut, Xue Haolang's expression changed a bit. He had not said this, so how could Bailey Hongzhuang know? On the other hand, the eyes of Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongba landed on Xue Haolang's boy. Bailey Hongzhuang would not ask this question without a reason. There had to be something they did not know. However, Xue Haolang, who is a cultivator of Beihai College, had his elders appearing in Kanglan City. That was simply too strange. With the expression of Xue Haolang, Bailey Hongzhuang has already confirmed that she had guessed correctly. Xue Haolang's elders went to Kanglan and it was likely to be before the tournament began. All along she thought it was only a trap at the college tournament, but she did not expect that the reach of Beihai College had already reached Kanglan College. It was simply too much. Not only the expression of Xue Haolang but also the expression of Lu Jinglin and the others changed. The situation was never a secret in their eyes. Their purpose was to destroy the Kanglan College. It is just embarrassing to be called out like this by Bailey Hongzhuang. The atmosphere became rather awkward, and the three teams on the ground were all aware of the truth. Lu Huaiyan and Fu Hongba looked uneasily at Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingguo. The Beihai College was truly more and more despicable. The face of Huan Chuyu was also not very good looking. They had already noticed the movement of Beihai College, but they did not expect that they would have sent someone else this time. Although the biggest opponent is Lingyin College, they would never stoop so low to use such means. On the other hand, Beihai College is like a despicable villain. They did not care if it was doing something unspeakable and made people feel sick. Xue Haolang quickly disagreed. How can there be an inscription at a place where not even the birds wants to go? "I think you are thinking too much." Xue Haolang's eyes were filled with disdain, but at the same time he was uncomfortable because of the words spoken by Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the words of Xue Haolang had successfully provoked the anger of the Kanglan cultivators. "What did you say?" "I think Beihai City is the place where birds don't want to be," Cui Haoyan said coldly. This Xue Haolang was truly the best case of ivory was incapable of coming out of a dog's mouth. Xue Haolang said ironically, "Is that so? If the city is a place where birds do not even want to be, then how could I buy inscriptions there?" Su Haolang was getting better and better at lying. "I told you my inscription was bought in Beihai City. Your jealousy is useless." Hearing this, Cui Haoyan looked at Xue Haolang coldly. In fact, he knew that Sunglang did not sell inscriptions. Even so, the city is still very prosperous, but Xue Haolang said that it was a place that not even birds wanted to visit. "Beihai City has wastes like yourself. There is no way we would be jealous," Xia Jiqing said. Shui Haolang looked at Xia Jiqing with disgust. You might be good at talking, but you want to sneak into Beihai College to buy an inscription. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips suddenly evoked a smile. Such an ordinary inscription, why would we spend our money to buy it? Her voice just fell when Shui Haolang sneered, Bailey Hongzhuang, don't say the grapes are sour, just because you can't eat them. Is it not obvious? Since you say it is an ordinary inscription, then let's see you come up with one like it. I saw that in your team, apart from Gong Shaoqing no one has an inscription. Shui Haolang was feeling upset. The effect of this inscription has been personally tested, and the fire attribute attack was very good. The attack was very explosive and it was lethal. It was suitable for attacking. The crowd also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was bragging. Even the most common inscription was not accessible to ordinary cultivators. Even some of them have never even seen an inscription. If you say this, is it not the same as digging a pit for yourself? The eyes of Zhang Hongxi was also falling onto Bailey Hongzhuang. There might be some strength to this Bailey Hongzhuang, but it is ridiculous to behave like this. Huan Chuyo's eyes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. He could not understand what her purpose was it to intentionally anger Shui Haolang? However, his understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang was that she would never do such an immature thing. On Bailey Hongzhuang's lips was a ridiculing smile. Originally she did not understand the full effect of the inscription and thus wanted to take it out for auction. She did not want to take it out when she knew so little about it. Since then she had focused on drawing inscriptions and not using them. Today Shui Haolang had helped her understand the strength of her inscription, so she no longer needed to worry about it. If I take it out, what will you do? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Shui Haolang had never expected that she would be so serious about the matter, but he could not help but sigh. If you can take it up, then I will destroy my sword. Bailey Hongzhuang was happy and she wanted to annoy Shui Haolang. She never expected he would dig a pit for himself. Are you sure you want to do this? Of course I am certain. Not waiting for Lu Jinglin to stop him, Shui Haolang had already blurted out the words. He did not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang could come up with this particular inscription. If she could really take it out, she would not have waited doing it until now. Seeing Shui Haolang's fast promise, Lu Jinglin felt helplessness. She always felt that there was a trap prepared with the sudden change of Bailey Hongzhuang. With her understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, this inscription was taken from Kanglin City back then. Bailey Hongzhuang had been living in Kanglin City, so it might be possible for her. In that case, I will let you see it. Next, in front of everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang directly took out a thick stack of inscriptions from her qianquan bag. That's right. It was a thick stack. When he saw the same red six-pointed star pattern, Shui Haolang almost fainted. How was this possible? Are you doing this especially to trouble me? With so many inscriptions, are you trying to sell them? Even if you want to sell inscriptions, do you need that many? Xia Jiqing and the others were also stunned. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly against the sky. With so many inscriptions, how could she possibly be normal? Bailey Hongzhuang took one of the inscriptions and shook it in front of Shui Haolang. Isn't this the inscription you are so proud of? Then Bailey Hongzhuang casually started playing with it, and said, it's just that the inscription is very common. If it is used on a weapon it will affect the future of the weapon, hence I have never been using them. I did not think that you got this ordinary inscription and you'd still be so proud. If I did not show it to you, I am afraid you would not know how big the world is. Then Bailey Hongzhuang took the inscriptions and handed them over to Xia Jiqing and to the others. There was some helplessness between her brows. If I knew earlier that this inscription was considered good, then I would have given it to you earlier, to avoid us being made fun of like this. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had some regrets. She used these inscriptions to practice, she never knew their actual strength. If she had known the strength she would have already given them to everyone, then at least Cui Haoyan would not have been beaten by Shui Haolang. Cui Haolang and the others accepted the inscription from Bailey Hongzhuang. Their eyes filled with shock and wonder. They already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was a master when it came to pill refinement, but now they knew she was a master of masters. Has anyone else seen inscriptions handled like this? Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang, they were sure they would never find a second person. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at one another, their eyes filled with disbelief. Having so many inscriptions, just who was this Bailey Hongzhuang? Even the most common inscription like this was impossible for a person to get their hands on. It was difficult to meet an inscription master. Zhang Hongxi, who had been ridiculing her, couldn't help but change his expression after seeing this scene. The smug smile at the corner of his mouth also quickly disappeared. Huan Chuyu also blinked for a moment and the smile at the bottom of his eyes slowly expanded. Bailey Hongzhuang was really amazing. However, there were no inscription masters in Kanglan City. How could Bailey Hongzhuang know that the inscription from Shui Haolang was bought in Kanglan? Huan Chuyu's eyes were deep in thoughts. The inscription master who had drawn this inscription had to have a certain relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, why would she have so many of the same kind? Vice President Sung, it seems that you have been mistaken. Huan Chuyu smiled faintly. He felt a victory when he saw Zhang Hongxi defeated by his students like this. Zhang Hongxi's expression was not good. The move of Bailey Hongzhuang was different from anything they could have possibly thought of. There were so many inscriptions, and they all made people wonder whether it was authentic or not. However, as a vice president, he also knew that he could not come with any bad remarks. He could only let Huan Chuyu be proud. Jian Qingqiu and Zhang Hongxi looked at one another. According to the news they had gotten, Bailey Hongzhuang was the ace of Kanglan College. Although there had already been a battle, no one knew her real strength, as Lu Jinglin never really got to put up a fight against her. Now it would seem that this Bailey Hongzhuang was not a simple character. Hongzhuang, are you giving these inscriptions to us? Cui Haoyan's face was filled with shock. Although her actions had already explained her thoughts, he still couldn't help but ask. After all, the value of an inscription was much more expensive than that of the medications. Such an expensive thing, could they accept it just like that? Bailey Hongzhuang was casual and her beautiful face was adorned with a smile, of course. Hongzhuang, this thing is too expensive, we can't. Dongfang Yu felt that they could not accept such an expensive thing. Not waiting for Dongfang Yu to finish his words, Bailey Hongzhuang directly interrupted, everyone here is my good friend, so just accept it. It's just that, Dongfang Yu was somewhat embarrassed. Even ordinary inscriptions were hard to get your hands on. What's more, the effect of this inscription was already so good, it felt weird accepting it just like that. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand, this inscription is really not worth much money. Don't feel bad about it. Also, it is good to have the inscription for the next round of the tournament. Hearing this, Dongfang Yu could not help but nod on behalf of himself and the others. In fact, the next round of the tournament was the most important. The inscription played a huge role and would allow them to get better results in the tournament. Xia Jiqing was not sure what to say at this moment in time, she could only say that she was happy that she was friends with such a local tyrant. Zhan Yunfeng and the others looked at the inscription in their hands. Their hearts were full of gratitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. If it was changed to another person, it would be impossible to be as generous as Bailey Hongzhuang. At a time like this, Shui Haolang turned out to be like this. He really doesn't know what it is like to die. Little Black screamed out, this guy was simply too much. He is just causing more and more trouble, but he will fall into despair soon. Little White's eyes were filled with a smile, their master was not going to let them go easily. Shui Haolang was causing so much trouble, and their master had never been soft. For Shui Haolang's actions, they did not take her by surprise. Even in the coffin he would not understand his mistake. In this case, she did not mind ensuring that he really died. Bailey Hailing nodded to Cui Haoyan and smiled. Cui Haoyan, if you don't mind, please engrave the inscription into the weapon and show Xue Haolang the truth. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang, Cui Haoyan nodded with no problems. Previously Xue Haolang had been ridiculing him, he couldn't stand it anymore. Now that he had a chance, it was possible for him to return the ridicule, there was no chance he would miss it. Xia Jiqing and the others had expressions of watching a drama unfold in front of them. Xue Haolang was going to get a good lesson. Zhan Yunfeng and the others were very calm and relaxed. Bailey Hongzhuang had never made mistakes before. They just waited to see the good show. The scene attracted everyone's attention as no one knew if Bailey Hongzhuang was correct or not. After seeing the scene, the people from Beihai College could not help but worry. The moment they could have been relaxing was now being used on inscriptions. Bailey Hongzhuang seemed so confident. If it was really true and Cui Haoyan proved everything that she said was true, then Xue Haolang was truly in a pickle. Xue Haolang's eyes landed on Cui Haolang. He would lie if he said that he was not worried, and his palms began to sweat. Cui Haoyan looked at Xue Haolang with a provocative look, and directly added the inscription from Bailey Hongzhuang on the weapon. There was a flaming red light that blinded them all, before the inscription that had originally been printed on the inscription paper was now merged onto the weapon. Everyone could not help but feel that the inscription seemed to move slightly, and it appeared that the weapon was now shining slightly. At this moment, everyone was certain that the inscriptions that Bailey Hongzhuang had brought forth were real, not fake at all. However, they still did not know if the inscription of Bailey Hongzhuang had the same effect as Xue Haolang's. It seems that it is a real inscription. I think that the inscription is the same as the one Xue Haolang has, otherwise she would not take the initiative to say so. Then if it is true, did that not prove that the people of Beihai College went to Kanglan City? When the words came out, the people could not help but change their expressions slightly. It did not take long before Cui Haoyan had successfully branded the inscription onto his weapon, and he could not help but gaze at Xue Haolang, his eyes lit up in triumph. Xue Haolang, let me try and test this to see whether or not it is the same as your inscription. Next, Cui Haoyan's inner energy surged directly into the weapon, the temperature rose and the inscription on his weapon shone with a red light. Cui Haoyan slashed out with the sword and saw how the fiery red sword cut out, a long gash of burnt ground was left in its wake. Seeing this scene, everyone erupted in surprise. This was almost exactly the same as Xue Haolang's inscription. Wow! The power of this inscription is so strong, it has such a strong flaming effect. So with this inscription you don't have to worry about your opponent. If you are around the same strength, an inscription like this one can easily determine the victory. Everyone's faces was filled with shock, this inscription was truly magnificent. If they could get one themselves, their combat ability would also improve. For some time, all of them envied the teammates of Bailey Hongzhuang. It was awesome to be friends with a local tyrant like her. Why didn't they know someone like Bailey Hongzhuang, so that good stuff like inscriptions landed on their heads? The students of Lingyin College had been disdainful towards Bailey Hongzhuang, but at this moment the eyes that looked at her changed. She was the kind of person anyone wanted to befriend. There was no one who managed to stay calm, even Nangong Xiujia and the others were shocked. After seeing the attack of Cui Haoyan, their eyes also turned shocked. This inscription was truly magnificent, it could increase their combat ability by so much. However, no matter how amazing the inscription was, it was a fact that their relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang was like fire and water, even if she had so many inscriptions, they could not buy any of them. Nangong Yuer's face was filled with displeasure. What's so great about them? It is just a few inscriptions, the inscriptions from Wubao Pavilion are also very good. Her inscription came from Wubao Pavilion, but it had taken her a lot of effort to get the inscription. The inscription masters were noble existences, and they did not care about anyone's face at all. Also, the inscription masters of Wubao Pavilion would much rather study inscriptions, they had no actual interest in selling them. They would just occasionally place inscriptions at the Wubao Pavilion for the sake of selling them. She was a princess and naturally wanted the inscription masters to draw one that suited her the most. Chapter 742, Bailey Hongzhuang is powerful. When Xue Haolang said so shamelessly, even the crowd who was observing was stunned. The face of Xue Haolang was simply too thick, wasn't it? Even if you are shameless, to speak out so confidently like Xue Haolang did, this was not something an ordinary person was capable of doing. Cui Haoyan was also angered into laughing as he speechlessly watched Xue Haolang before finally asking, Xue Haolang, are you even a man? Xue Haolang's face was ugly. No matter what he said now, he would just cause people to despise him even more, so it was best to just stay quiet. Next, Xue Haolang walked straight back to the resting place. He had decided to not do anything before the end of the college tournament. This Xue Haolang is really shameless. I did not expect Beihai College to behave like this. I only heard about how bad the Kanglan College is, but now it seems that it is really the cultivators of Beihai College who are trash. The cultivators of Beihai College are really bad. The hearts of the audience were silent for a while. They could not understand how Xue Haolang was able to say such words with a proud face. If it was them, they would never be able to remain behind after such a loss of face. However, when looking at Xue Haolang, it seemed like he did not care. Cui Haoyan was even more annoyed. This guy is too shameless, I will destroy his weapon for him. Seeing that Cui Haoyan was about to move, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped him. Cui Haoyan, don't worry. Xue Haolang has made up his mind, even if he was forced to destroy his weapon, he would not do it. Also, he'd just say that we are undermining the test, since he won't be able to join the next round without a weapon, and that would be very troublesome. The face of Bailey Hongzhuang was indifferent. For Xue Haolang, who had no bottom line, it was very likely that he would do something like this. Hearing this, Cui Haoyan could not help but frown. Should we just let him act like this? Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. His heart is already chaotic. Even if he participates in the next round, he will have a hard time getting good results. He has already ruined his own reputation. This might be even better than ruining a weapon. If Xue Haolang had just ruined the weapon, he would be respected and people would be optimistic about him. But his actions had proved that he was a real villain, and everyone was very disgusted with him. It is difficult to understand what Xue Haolang was thinking. It was better to give Xue Haolang a bit of space, to make them seem generous. Hongzhuang is not incorrect. Cui Haoyan, you should not care. Gong Shaoqing's voice slowly sounded, but his heart was once more filled with admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman was really nothing that an ordinary woman could compare to. Chapter 743, Opponents of the second round. Huan Chuyu looked at Sang Hongxi with a smile and said slowly, Vice President Sang, the hearts of your student are not so good. Now that the college exchange tournament was ongoing, the behavior of the students represented the colleges, and Xue Haolang's actions were the same as losing face for the entire Beihai College. Such a great opportunity, naturally, Huan Chuyu would not miss it. The face of Sang Hongxi was quite ugly. What Xue Haolang had done was not very good. But no matter what, Xue Haolang had already acted like this and nothing could change it. When listening to the ridiculing words of Huan Chuyu, Sang Hongxi was also quite angry. In the past, he was always the one who laughed at the Kanglan College. When had this been turned around? Vice President Huan, this was because of your good students. If it wasn't because of her, how could Xue Haolang fall to such a situation? It seems that the students of Kanglan College have only learned about using tricks these last 3 years. Saying Sang Hongxi starting an argument, Huan Chuyu was not in a hurry, and instead a gentle smile hung on his face. It only worked because he was stupid enough. When he said this, Huan Chuyu was not interested in paying any more attention to Zhang Hongxi. This old guy had always liked to blame others for his faults. This had been the case for many years, and Huan Chuyu already knew about the temperament of the other guy. But Zhang Hongxi was filled with hatred. Huan Chuyu actually said that his student was stupid. Just as Zhang Hongxi was about to retort, Jian Qingqiu looked at him directly and shook his head unnoticeably, blocking the words he wanted to say. Jian Qingqiu's mood was foul. He had planned on insulting Kanglan College, but things were not going his way. Now, because of the Beihai College, the brilliance of Kanglan College had been brought to light, so he was feeling immensely depressed. If the Kanglan College students were allowed to continue like this, he would really become angry. When he felt the eyes of Jian Qingqiu, Zhang Hongxi dared no longer say anything, although he was fuming with anger on the inside. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba looked at each other, their eyes filled with a smile. They had not been this happy for a long time. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingguo had been using their identity to press down on the two of them, now they could finally stay proud. The hour of break soon passed, and after a bit of time, everyone had been restored quite a bit. The second round of battle will now begin. With the sound of Jian Qingqiu's voice, the cultivators who had advanced to the second round slowly stood up and looked in the direction of the stage. To determine who you are to battle in the second round, we will also use a lottery. 5 students will be randomly selected to start the lottery. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in place. Bailey Hongzhuang could also feel the killing intent that started bursting out of Nangong Yuer's body, but she was still not nervous or felt panic. In fact, she had been the target of many different killing intents throughout her life. The killing intent displayed by Nangong Yuer was still quite ordinary. However, the fact that Nangong Yuer wanted to kill her was out of her expectations. The tournament had always banned killing their opponents, but it seemed that these rules did not matter to the third princess. She completely ignored all rules and did whatever she wanted to do. Thinking about this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help to show a bit of disgust in her eyes. Chapter 749, Nangong Yuer. At the second layer of the Red Realm, she was not disgusted with people who had killing intent. But she was full of disgust towards Nangong Yuer, a person who only knew about her own interests and completely ignored the lives of others. It is like, just because she was born in the royal family, everything was fine, even if she trampled upon others. Begin. When the judge's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong Yuer immediately began fighting. Nangong Yuer's eyes were glaring at Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as you admit defeat and promise to leave Mo Yunjue, I will let you go. How about that? Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Mo Yunjue. When she thought about what had happened before in the first tower, and that Nangong Yujin had whispered something to Nangong Yuer, it all made sense to her. The person that Nangong Yuer likes is Mo Yunjue, not Bewitching. The mood of Bailey Hongzhuang improved a bit after understanding this. It's just Mo Yunjue and her. It seems to be a misunderstanding. The line of sight of Bailey Hongzhuang turned slightly as she glanced at Mo Yunjue, who was standing beneath the stage, before she looked at Nangong Yuer. She saw that Nangong Yuer was being arrogant, as if Bailey Hongzhuang should be extremely grateful for her to offer her this option. In fact, this was exactly what Nangong Yuer thought. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately put away the thought of explaining the misunderstanding to her. Since Nangong Yuer believes so, then let her believe it. You think too much. The voice of Bailey Hongzhuang was very cold. Obviously she did not pay attention to the words of Nan Gongyuer. For the arrogance of Nan Gongyuer it was simply better to just defeat her. When she said this, Nan Gongyuer's face turned ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to speak to her in such a way. It was simply unforgivable. Since you won't listen, I will fulfill your death wish. Nan Gongyuer was gloomy. Usually this kind of person, who did not know good from bad, would end up dead soon. Bailey Hongzhuang still looked calm. Stop with all this nonsense, just begin fighting. She did not want to spend any more time on this boring situation, she wanted to end the fight as soon as possible. The so-called princess was nothing in her eyes. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to take the lead to challenge her, Nan Gongyuer was so angry she began laughing. She did not expect that Kanglin College's ace was so stupid. The people also felt the sharp atmosphere on the stage, and their excitement grew stronger and stronger. It seemed this was a battle worth seeing. Bailey Hongzhuang is really stupid. She still dares to provoke Yuer at this point in time. I am afraid that it will be impossible for her to walk down the stage in the future. Nan Gongjie smirked. What kind of temper Nan Gongyuer had? It was quite obvious.